all things Astros with your hosts, sports writer Jeff Balke and Astros broadcaster and former third baseman Jeff Blum. Now, here's Balke and Blummer.
What is up, Astros fans? Welcome to episode 46 of the Believe in Astros podcast on the Believe Podcasting Network. Got a huge show today with special guest Brian McTaggart of MLB.com. I'm Jeff Balke, my partner, that legendary Poultry Gala MC himself, Jeff Blum. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, of course, YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe to keep up with us. Give us a follow on Twitter at Believe in Astros. You can find me at Jeff Balke and Blummer at Blummer27 all over social media. Blummer's Instagram is particularly interesting oftentimes, so give him a follow there for sure. Thanks for everyone who's given us 5 stars and left reviews on Apple. I will simply go with what Blummer said last time and just go and do that. Like, you know.
Hey, it's working.
Yeah, it's working. We got some great comments.
We got a couple of them.
Yeah, one guy, I forget whose name it was, but said he was told to do it by Blummer or Altuve would be traded to the Dodgers. So
and ain't nobody wanting that.
No, nobody wants that at all. Obviously
that would be. I got it. It's the Ryan factor. So we appreciate that, Ryan, for listening.
Yeah, appreciate that, Ryan factor. Thanks so much. Obviously, send us your comments and questions. Love seeing and reading all of them. For example, did Blum have chicken or turkey at the Poultry Committee Gala?
Ooh.
Blummer, how are you doing this morning, buddy?
I'm doing very good, and you would be surprised to know that we actually had fried chicken at the Poultry Auction Committee dinner.
How was the gala? How did the MC go?
Oh, it was good. That is such a good group of people. And being a Houstonian and having the opportunity to have the rodeo here is one thing. And I mean, it's Super Bowl weekend every week for that month of March, it feels like.
Sure is.
The entertainment's great, but there's so many other things going on behind the scenes. You know, the barbecue event is amazing. Yeah. And then you have all of the auction committees that are selling off steer. They're selling off, turkeys, chickens. But it's all to benefit the FFA and the 4-H club and what they're able to do. And the amount of money that I'm rattling off as I'm going through this gala is unbelievable. I'm just shocked and stunned, but also I know that the gifting with all that money goes right back into the education for a lot of kids in Houston. So that's one thing that they're doing is really a lot of fun. But the people are amazing. They are a lot of fun to be around. Trust me.
Yeah. The rodeo is something different, man. It every year it is from the moment the trail riders start rolling into Houston until the moment they pack up that last ride at the carnival. It is a nonstop. You're right. It's like the Super Bowl for an entire month. Pretty fascinating on that. Before we get to our guest, do a quick word from our sponsor. BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season, including the NFL playoffs, pro and college basketball, UFC, MMA, and more. Speaking of the playoffs, Super Bowl in a couple of weeks here. You got a prediction, Blummer? The over-under currently is, I think, Philly -2, I think.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. I was really impressed. I mean, this sounds terrible, but I was impressed by the defense. They absolutely, literally destroyed the 49ers.
They really did.
I was talking to a good buddy and watching that Niners game. It almost felt like a Monty Python football game. Because, you lose the quarterback, you lose a linebacker, you lose a defensive end. I'm going, man, they've got nothing left, and they're just going, it's just a flesh wound. We'll come back, you cowards.
The guy couldn't even throw. Brock Purdy couldn't even throw. He was out there handing the ball off because he couldn't throw the ball.
It was amazing. Yeah, but the Phillies are much – they were legit to begin with, but they're much more legit now.
Close.
Eagles, sorry.
You did exactly what I did on the local radio the other day. I called them the Phillies. That's what happened.
Yeah, if you want to know what gear our mind is in.
Exactly.
But my heart wouldn't be broken if Philadelphia lost 2 major sports championships in 1 year. I don't know.
Yeah, I tell you what, better grease up them light poles is all I can tell you. Because win or lose, it's going to be trouble in downtown Philadelphia.
You ain't lying.
By the way, that day, February 12th, I'll be in Colorado. It's also my wife's birthday. So we're having a joint birthday Super Bowl celebration. So that should be fun. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info. I forgot we were reading an ad. Player news and game trends at BetOnline. With live betting options, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable, BetOnline is truly the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events. Head to website today or use your mobile device to join and receive 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Use promo code BLEAV to receive your rewards. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts. And Blummer, before we get to Brian McTaggart here, I did want to ask you a quick question, get your reaction to your thoughts on the new book that came out yesterday. Evan Drellich, I know, yeah, going in depth on this is one of those sort of meta books where it's not just a book about the sign stealing scandal; it's a book about the reporting surrounding the sign stealing scandal. Obviously, The Athletic is hyping it. The Athletic is owned by the New York Times, so it's on there as well. Of course, no one's actually discussed whether it helped the team or not. But I'm curious as your thoughts that comes out. I mean, we're dredging all that back up. And, of course, on social media, opinions are flying. So what do you think? What's your thought?
I think it's truly ironic that the Astros won another World Series championship and this book comes out. You know, I mean, you and I talked about this a while ago. We're both kind of done with this whole situation. And
yes, we are.
Trying to monetize it for your you're not doing the game any good. We know that by letting these books, by producing these books, it's only for self gratification. It's for for monetary value to if you can sell it anymore. But I think that taking this long to talk about it and the excessive social media banter about it just dilutes the fact that it happened. And it just, the more that comes out on it, the more you're like, okay, whatever. You know, and exactly. I truly feel that, you know, if the Red Sox had won, if the Yankees had won in 2017, if the Dodgers had won in 2017, there still would have been that underlying sign stealing stuff going on. And who's to say that somebody wouldn't have thrown the Dodgers under the bus or the Red Sox or the Yankees, because the Red Sox and Yankees are the reason that the Astros got busted as bad as they did, because they initiated it. And nobody ever talks about that. So when that book comes out, I may look at the cover, but I'm not going to read those books because I could care less.
Right. Well, apparently there is some discussion in the book about the Red Sox and Yankees and how that sort of predated and sort of predicated the whole thing. I'm with you, though, Blummer. I'm tired of talking about it. Obviously, as Astros fans, we're going to be tired of talking about it. I think baseball is worn out on it, too. You know,
yeah.
I think overall baseball is just – this is one of those things where I feel like everybody in baseball has gotten to the point now where I think most people realize that sign stealing was happening. It was rampant. It was, you know, across the league. And, you know, at this point,
it's still going on. And I don't care if they've got pitch com or not. It's still going on because the position of the catcher, I can watch the position of the infielders and relay. I mean, give me whatever.
Exactly. Well, you said it last time. The shortstop is constantly staring into the crotch of the catcher.
Yes. Yes.
So,
what a view.
I mean, what a picture that paints for everyone. I got to tell you. All right. Well, very excited to have our guest on today, Brian McTaggart, who's been reporting for MLB.com since the late 2000s. I think 2009 is when he started there. Before that with the Houston Chronicle. Very much looking forward to getting his insights. And so let's do that. All right. Very special welcome to Brian McTaggart from MLB.com. Brian, I know you've been with MLB since 2009. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And with the Chronicle before that, so you're the man that knows everything Astros, I'm assuming.
Well, I wish that was true, but I try. On a lot of days I do, a lot of days I don't. But yeah, this will be my 20th year covering the team.
That's amazing. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Good.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for joining us. One quick note, I just saw this morning the Astros signed pitcher Ty Buttrey, which I think that's the right pronunciation, other than his name sounding like how you order popcorn at the movies. What do we need to know about this guy? I mean, I saw he retired a year ago, then came back. Brian, do you know what's going on with him?
Boy, that's news to me. He was with the Angels for a while, right?
Yeah.
I think
I just saw it in the Chronicle this morning, and he apparently they signed him to a minor league deal, which allows him to play for and he played in AAA and like a 5+ ERA. I mean, he's not a lefty.
Yeah, just sounds like a bullpen depth arm. I mean, they could use a couple of those veteran guys just to, have stashed away in AAA if there's an injury. Which that last year they were very fortunate not to have very many injuries, but still you need some depth. So it looks like that's a depth piece.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I wanted to get your thoughts on we obviously want to find out. Blummer and I have talked about it a lot. The hiring of Dana Brown, with his scouting background, is certainly we think is going to improve on that. Astros only have one top 100 prospect at the moment. Assuming that's going to change, what are your overall thoughts on the hiring of Brown as the new GM?
Yeah, I think it was great. I mean, he's so well respected in the game. He's got a great reputation. I had 3 different people when the process of going on was with him interviewing. 3 different people sent me his number just out of the blue and like, you got to call this guy. So I did call him before they hired him and took my call, had a conversation with him. He was very laid back, relaxed. He was great. I shot him a text after he was hired, and he texted me back in the middle of the night and said he had 700 plus texts that he was returning. So, but wow. A great scouting background. He says he was raised by old-time scouts. It's sort of a reversal from the first 2 general managers that Jim Crane hired. He hired Ivy League educated, data-driven guys, but Dana is a guy who was a player, played in the Philly system for a bit, played at Seton Hall with Biggio, of course, has been a scout, has been out there looking at talent, player development, retaining players. So it's just a little bit of a different philosophy. I think Crane definitely wanted to get back to getting a baseball guy who's had dirt on his pants and played the game, but also has a great reputation for what he's done with the Braves. You mentioned the top 100. The Braves don't have anybody in the top 100. It's because they all went to the big leagues. So, so credit to him for that.
No,
Absolutely.
it is a credit to him, and he's done a very good job. You're right, the legacy is there, and I like the idea of bringing back that scouting because you do have to get eyes on these guys to match up with what the numbers are saying. And I think it's interesting that you bring up the Atlanta Braves not having any of those guys in the top 100 because they are in the big leagues, and those guys that they do have in the big leagues, they've been offered these great extensions, and they seem to be great contracts, and the Braves really had the idea of keeping a good nucleus together, even though that they lost Dansby Swanson to the Chicago Cubs. But give us an idea of what that could possibly mean for some of the Astros who could be up for extensions in the upcoming years.
Well, there's 2 guys right now, of course, that are in the crosshairs for that. That's Tucker and Fromber. Tucker's got 3 years left. Fromber's got a couple, I think. So I think those conversations are already underway to try to get those guys locked up. I mean, last year they did try to lock up Tucker for whatever reason. It didn't happen, but he did a great job with that with the Braves. I mean, locking up pretty much every one of their young players, other than Swanson. So, and I think that spoke to Crane as well. The fact that you develop these guys, sign them early, like they did with Bregman, like they did with Jordan, who I think they signed just in time because he probably would cost a little bit more right now, and build a nucleus around these guys. Be very solid in your player development. And then when you have a guy early on you think is going to hit, let's get him signed to a deal that both sides will like, and then in a few years we'll see how it pans out. But I certainly think that before spring training, there's a chance they could sign Tucker or Fromber to these deals, or maybe even both, and that would be a great step forward.
Well, you got to think, too, Tucker's price went up after this offseason. I mean, so Tucker, if he was holding out for more money, he certainly made the right move.
Yeah, he did, and maybe he holds out a little longer, and he's a long way from free agency, and they're going to offer him a lot of money, and at some point, maybe it's going to be hard for him to turn that down. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he the tremendous season he had, he certainly made himself a little bit of money. Fromber too, with just an unbelievable season and getting some Cy Young votes.
Absolutely. So there's still a little bit of talk about the potential return for Yuli Gurriel. Blummer and I have been sort of discussing this, for weeks now. Really, he had a little bit of a sniff with Miami. They thought maybe he'd sign there. Now it's sort of the rumors are that it's sort of between the Twins and the Astros. Do you have any thoughts on what the Astros are thinking in this scenario? I mean, they have a couple of guys they can already plug in as utility players, and Mauricio Dubon and David Hensley obviously come a little cheaper, and they have some minor league options still left whereas Yuli certainly doesn't. What's the thinking there?
Yeah, I mean, I thought a couple of weeks ago I was pretty much told he was going to Miami, so I'm not sure what the deal is there. But the Astros also have Madriz, who they traded for from Pittsburgh, a guy they can play at first base, and I think some right field as well. So, I'm not so sure how he would fare in the utility role, Yuli. He can play first, I think, of course. He's a great first baseman, but, how much third, how much second base can he play at this point? And I think if the Astros brought him in as a utility player, I think there'd be a lot of pressure for them to play him a lot more than they probably would feel comfortable. So I think it'd be a huge hit in the clubhouse. I know that Altuve and those guys would love to have him back, but, man, I just don't know how it fits right now. It seems like a round hole in a square peg.
Boy, it sure
is
does.
there any – we know that we have Mauricio Dubon, you've got David Hensley, but is there any idea maybe possibly of a free agent out there? I keep seeing Jerks and Profar's name out there.
Yeah, I threw his name out there just as a few weeks ago, writing about him, a guy that can play all over, and I thought he might be holding out for a starting position somewhere. But here we are, a couple of weeks from spring training, he's still out there. I think he would be a great fit if they can get him. Maybe his price is coming down, but yeah, he's the one free agent guy I think that you can plug in. I don't know how comfortable they would be with going in there with Hensley and Dubon and trying to mix and match it that way. Again, talking to some people, I think Madriz is going to be in the mix as well, just as a guy that can play some first and right field. So it wouldn't surprise me if they do bring in another player for utility. But Gurriel, as a utility player, man, I don't know. I just don't see it.
Yeah, he's a fan favorite, but I think Blummer and I are both in agreement with you that it's a very tough fit. I think. Switching gears a little bit, let's talk about the rotation now minus Justin Verlander. Obviously, I think a lot of people think, it's hard to just sit here and brush off a Cy Young Award winner and be like, it's fine. But the Astros truly do have a lot of depth there, especially now if you add Hunter Brown into that mix. Do the Astros feel pretty comfortable with their rotation going forward and what they're going to do without JV?
Yeah, I think they do. I mean, you look at what they did last year with the rotation. I mean, you're losing the Cy Young Award winner. Let's not sugarcoat this. That's a big hole in that rotation. But they have guys that are capable of stepping up and filling it. They had a couple of very solid starting pitchers who didn't even sniff a start in the playoffs. So, and then you have Hunter Brown on the come as well. I was in Florida a couple of days ago at the Reggie Jackson Golf Tournament and got a chance to visit with Jeff Bagwell. And he said something that is very, very true that I think is probably one of the keys to the Astros this year. Their starting pitching was really healthy last year. McCullers came back, but Verlander was on the DL for a couple of weeks, but they had tremendous health in their starting pitching. That's pretty rare to do that when you have a whole season where hardly anybody goes on the IL and they put up their innings. That's a credit to the Astros. You can't take that away from them. Can they do that again this year? If they have a couple of guys injured, what's the depth beyond that? Are you looking at a guy like J.P. France maybe coming in at that point? So I think that's the one thing. If they stay healthy, I think they certainly have enough pitching, I think, to withstand the Verlander loss.
Wow.
Yeah, health is the biggest key. Obviously, last year was one of those anomalies where you had everybody going out there and getting those starts, except for JV, who probably really benefited from that time on the injured list. But you mentioned J.P. France. That's one of those guys that's in AAA that could provide an opportunity. There's a name that is still in this organization, and it's Forrest Whitley. Do you have any indication that he might have an impact finally at the big league level?
I don't know. I mean, that's kind of one of the things I'm really anxious to find out about getting down to spring training. And I think it's about the third or fourth year I've said this is what's going on with Forrest Whitley.
Right.
We're going to get down there and find out. But you almost seem like you get to a point to where, man, you gotta contribute something, or it's time to move on. I think this might be the year. I wonder. I mean, do you make him a reliever at this point and just let him just go out there and throw some gas and see if he can get guys out? But he's been through a lot: injuries, suspensions. He's tinkered with his mechanics so much, and none of it's really worked out at this point. But he's still got great stuff. He's still relatively young. You have to remember they drafted him out of high school, so you never know. I mean, maybe it clicks late for some guys, and then they're certainly not ready to give up on him yet. And he's going to get a chance this spring to once again show what he can do.
Man, that is how old is he now? I mean, they drafted him out of high school. He's got to be 23 or something.
Yeah,
right?
I would say 23. Yeah, high school draftee. So he's been kicking it for a while now. But look at a guy. You remember Mark Appel just reached the big leagues last year, and he retired and came back. So it's hard for these guys to give it up. But he's got such good stuff though, and if he can just figure a way to rein it in and find some mechanics that work for him, I think he's got a chance to get some people out. Yeah,
retirement. Ask Tom Brady about retiring and coming back. Apparently this morning though, he says that's it officially. We'll see.
Yeah, saw the video. Yeah,
doesn't have Giselle to yell at him anymore. So speaking of the bullpen, everybody's back, and including kind of a big payday for Montero and an arbitration deal for Phil Maton, even though he broke his hand hitting a blocker or whatever. Jim Crane seems pretty, he seemed pretty hell bent on making sure that their bullpen was full complement. I assume that's part of the math here is that, we need plenty of depth in case of injury, or is that what they're kind of thinking?
I think so. Crane was really hell bent on having the bullpen come back intact. He wanted every one of these guys back. They were all so good, and they give Montero a lot of money right out of the gate in free agency. I mean, that was kind of a head scratcher. I was like, wow, that's a lot of money for Montero, a guy that was coming off an injury not that long ago. And to be honest, it's probably a little bit of an overpay. But the way Crane sees it, if they can bring this bullpen back, keep it together, and he can put up another season and help them get a championship, money well spent. But yeah, they have Stanek back. Presley was tremendous. Presley's going to be in the World Baseball Classic as well. Brian Abreu, man, how good was that guy? And I think he's just going to get better. Yeah, he's finally found it. So tremendous bullpen. They're going to have Christian Javier, going to be in the rotation now. So he was in the bullpen a lot the previous couple of years. So, but they have a lot of pitching, and like I said, health is going to be the key, I think, for this pitching staff. And if they can stay healthy, no reason they're not going to be one of the best or the best pitching staff in the big leagues.
Wow.
Yeah, talking about this rotation, losing Verlander, locking up this bullpen, and keeping them all together, what was it like being a writer for the Houston Astros, fresh off a World Series championship, and watching the flurry of deals and money flying around the free agent market this season, while the Astros just kind of sat back, said, well, hey, we'll sign Jose Abreu, bring him in because we need him, and just watch so many other teams try and make so many moves to catch up to what the Astros are doing, yet the Astros just kind of chilling out, watching the show as it goes by. What was that like as a writer, hearing everybody, writing these glorious stories about free agency, and you're just kind of sitting back going, the Astros are still good?
It was awesome. I didn't have to cover all that stuff. I could watch all my colleagues and read all their work. But yeah, the amount of money that was thrown around. But you're right. I mean, the Astros, Jim Crane's not going to give out these $300 million contracts. He's just shown that's not what he's going to do. And they didn't have to. I mean, they struck very early in free agency with Abreu before the winter meetings. So by the time the winter meetings rolled around, it was like, okay, this team's set. And people kind of forgot about the Astros. They didn't go out there and spend tons of money because they didn't have to. Yet they're probably still the favorites to win the World Series. That's credit to the organization and what they've built. But yeah, the amount of money that was thrown around was just unbelievable. Everyone getting these huge deals, and Correa getting 3 of them, and then finally getting one with the Twins. So I think he had like $800 million in deals that he had agreed to. So
wow, that's unbelievable.
Crazy.
It's crazy too to think these guys, the years on some of these. Like, I understand the money, the average per year sort of amount. A lot of these guys, they're not. Some of the per year is not crazy for some of these guys, but 11 years for guys who are going to be like 42 in their final year of that to me was the crazy thing. Blummer and I have talked about it a bunch on here about how you can understand the money, but the number of years is just crazy.
Totally. I mean, I would never commit to anybody that long term. You don't know what's going to happen. I mean, anytime you get these long term deals, 10 years, at the end of it, it's always a disaster. It's always not good. I mean, even guys like Pujols and Cabrera at the end of their careers, although Pujols had a little bit of a surge there, chasing the 700 home runs. But for the most part, it just does not end well. And Astros don't do that. It's not in their philosophy. And hat tip to them because they find other ways to get it done. Draft and develop, sign these guys early, sort of like the Braves are doing. And let's not give out 10, 11 year contracts to guys who might not be walking halfway through it. You just don't know.
That's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and it was also interesting to watch some of the moves the Astros tried to make in the offseason were maybe for a backup catcher to Martin Maldonado.
Yes.
And I think without them going out and getting a free agent to back him up, it kind of lies in the lap of Yainer Diaz or Corey Lee. And I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts about, is Martin going to be able to handle the workload that he had in 2022? And if it is Yainer or Corey, who is it going to be, and why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think Martin will be able to handle it. I mean, I think he's determined. I mean, he's a guy that wants to catch 120, 130 games. He had a couple injuries last year. He had the broken hand, which I've seen up close, and it was pretty gnarly. He played through that.
Oof.
Had hernia surgery, double hernia surgery. That he was dealing with that too late last. This is a tough guy who played through a lot and still went out there and I think he started 11 of the 13 playoff games. So. He's going to come back, I think, healthier than he's been. So I think he's ready.
Might
for
be
that.
better than last year.
Might be better. Yeah, he's kind of like a crash test dummy at this point. They just keep piecing them back together. But I think the two guys now they're going to get real shots here, and Corey Lee and Diaz, like you said. I mean, they're both a little bit different. The team loves Diaz's bat a little bit more. He can also play some first base, I think, which is very appealing to them. Lee's a little bit better behind the plate, has a better arm, but he had some mechanical ups and downs last year at the plate, and so he's going to have to clean that up a little bit. But I think that's going to be one of the interesting things to watch. Is kind of the battle who's going to win that backup catching job right now. And I think if Diaz comes into camp and really hits and shows he can play first, I think it'll be tough for him not to win that job out of camp. That's
an interesting point, and spring training is such an interesting time because there are these storylines that come out that you're not expecting. We look at guys like Pedro Leon. Of course, he has had surgery recently, so he's not going to be there right away. But there are guys that have the potential to come up and make an impact, if not for the whole season, at least for part of it. What are some of the big storylines you see going into training camp outside of obviously the backup catcher role?
Yeah, I think one guy to really keep an eye on is Justin Durden, the undrafted outfielder who went to Double-A last year and had a monster season, a high on base percentage. I think he hit 40 doubles. This is a guy, a left-handed hitter, I believe, who could come in and I think at some point this year really push for some at bats in that outfield mix that they have right now. So that's the guy to watch, backup catcher. Like we said. That's one of the things about covering a team like the Astros that is so stacked. I mean, their 9 starting position players are set. Their rotation is set. Their bullpen is set. It's almost like you really have to peel the layers to find out, some real position battles. So it's going to be tough for, some of the prospects to crack this opening day roster. They know that, but they got to put themselves in position to be ready. I mean, look at David Hensley. He wasn't on anybody's radar last year coming out of camp. Not only does he make his debut, he ends up starting some games in the World Series and had a couple of hits. So those opportunities are always going to come if you're prepared and you're good enough.
How do they keep plucking these guys?
I know, it's amazing. That's what's funny to me, too, is you see these prospect lists. Oh, the Astros only have one. And then you're going, well, there's 4 or 5 other guys that they could plug in and produce in this lineup because they are so stacked and there's so much protection. And you mentioned earlier that the Astros probably a favorite to win the World Series again out of Las Vegas. But let's get inside the division a little bit. Are the Mariners good enough to compete for that top spot? Did the Angels make enough moves for you? Or, are the Rangers adding DeGrom and some of these other starting pitches? Is there enough for these other teams to really go out and compete? Or is it just foregone conclusion the Astros are just going to just take over the West again this year?
Yeah, I think there's still the class of the West. I mean, the gap is closing, there's no doubt. And that's not an indictment on the Astros. I mean, that's credit to what the Rangers have done, what the Mariners have done specifically. I mean, the Astros won the division by 16 games last year, so nobody was still anywhere close to them. So we all have to remember that. But the Mariners I think have gotten a lot better. They're going to have a full season of Castillo. They only had him for half a year, and he gave the Astros all they could handle in the playoffs. I think Teoscar Hernandez is going to be a huge addition to them. Colton Wong coming in now. The second's going to be big for them. They have a real legit rotation. They have a pretty good lineup now. Their bullpen, got a great closer as well. I think the Mariners are going to be really, really good. I think they're going to win 90-plus games. I think they'll push the Astros a little bit. But, I still think the Astros should win the division. The Rangers are going to be a lot better, too. Of course, fun to watch, adding all the starting pitching they did. I still think they're a third-place team in this division. It wouldn't shock me, though, if they make a run and make the playoffs. But it's amazing that all these teams are spending this money and making these trades and trying to do what the Astros just did. And like you said, Blummer, Astros are just kick back. Okay, come on, just spend your money and try to come get us, and we'll have a parade right here and all that stuff. So I'm glad the division's getting better. I mean, I like to see a competitive division.
Yeah, I think
Couldn't
you're right.
more.
It is fun. I mean, it's nerve-wracking for fans, certainly, who are sitting around at the end of the year going, worried that they're, the Astros are going to get taken out. But you're right. I mean, there's just so much depth on this team and so much top-level talent and so much of it homegrown. That it's an embarrassment of riches. It really, the Astros really do seem to be the class, of baseball in that regard. And you brought up the schedule. One of our readers, Sam Enneman, asked how the balanced schedule is going to affect them, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, we are losing a lot of games within the division this year to add on all those interleague games. What are your thoughts? Has there been any discussion around the league about how that's going to impact certain teams? I mean, the Astros certainly have feasted on the NL West over the last few years.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you look at the Astros, the last, I think going back to 17, I think they've won 50 games in the division maybe every year, not including the short, every year but one. Like you said, they've dominated that division, pounded the Mariners, pounded the A's, pounded the Rangers. Now, those teams other than the A's are getting better, so maybe this is a good time to split off and play some other teams. But I like it. I mean, I like the fact that you play so many different teams. Playing a team 18, 19 times to me was a little much. So, the Astros, first road trip of the year, they go to Minnesota and Pittsburgh, which is Blummer's going to have to pack his long johns for that one. That's
not looking forward to that at all.
Yeah, but I think everybody playing everybody is the way it should be. I mean, Shohei Ohtani should play every team. He should go to every city at least every other year. There's no reason to stash him away and only certain fans get to see him. So I think the stars getting to move around all over the country is great. I'm all for it. I think how it'll benefit them. I'm not sure, but I'm sure anytime the Astros come to town, it's going to be circled on everybody's calendar.
Well, 20 years for you covering the Houston Astros, and that goes all the way back to the National League days. What city are you looking forward to getting back into? Because I know you got some sneaky good cities out there.
Yeah, I think I've told you, I've always been a Pittsburgh fan. I mean, back in the NL Central days, man, you go to Pittsburgh, it was solid. I could stay right across the street, walk to the park, that great view of downtown and the rivers.
Gorgeous.
Rivers.
Just a great place to be. I'm not sure about April. We'll see. The Astros played a game. It's when Phil Garner was the manager, and so I'm walking to the ballpark and I'm walking next to Phil Garner and Humberto Quintero. They're walking to the ballpark. And so we're kind of walking together, and it was in April, I think, and it was cold, and we get about halfway to the ballpark, and they duck into a store. And so I asked Gar later, and they came back with like gloves and long johns and all this stuff because it was so cold. So Pittsburgh in the summer, Milwaukee's another one in the NL Central I enjoyed going to, especially in the summer. You go to Milwaukee in July, that's a good scene, a good vibe.
That's a great place.
Yeah, so looking forward to going back there as well. I haven't covered a game in Wrigley Field since 2012. They're not going there this year, but I'm really looking forward to next year when they get back to Wrigley Field.
That's a good call. Wrigley Field is always a good time, and Pittsburgh. You're right, man. The all those the Monongahela and the Allegheny, and I forget the other one, but the three rivers coming. That's a beautiful downtown. Like people sleep on Pittsburgh as a city, but it's a really beautiful place. We had one other question from a reader, Lou Clark, who asked to ask you specifically who you think is the funniest guy to interview with the Astros, because there's some characters. In this clubhouse for sure.
Yeah, definitely some characters. Wow. I think a sneaky funny guy is Chas McCormick. He's just a very easygoing, a guy with a good sense of humor, doesn't take himself too seriously. Just grateful to be there. Always enjoy talking to Chas. Ryan Stanek's a sneaky funny guy as well. Like talking to him. My dealings with Yuli one-on-one are pretty limited just because I don't know Spanish very well. He speaks better English than he let on, but always got a smile on his face, always laughing, and I think he's a guy who's got a very good way about him, a very good sense of humor. I always enjoyed any dealing I had with Yuli Gurriel. So if he comes back, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world from my standpoint. But it's a really good clubhouse. I mean, there's a lot of good guys in there, guys that are professionals and they understand what we do, and understand we have jobs to do as well, and you always appreciate that.
No, we are very fortunate to be covering this team. I know that they win a lot and it makes our job that much easier, but it's also nice being around a group of guys that actually do accommodate some of the questions and some of the work that we need to get done. Just another question about this season. One of the things that I think is going to be a big storyline for just baseball in general is going to be all the rule changes. The pitch clock, the bigger base, and the shifting. I think I know the answer, but I'm curious to know, what is Brian McTaggart looking forward to seeing, or what do you anticipate, or what are you more curious about seeing happen in the game as far as any of those three rules? Is anything really piquing your interest?
Yeah, I like all three of them. I mean, I guess the one I'm most curious about is the bigger bases, to see what that does. I mean, is it really going to cause that much more running? Are we going to see, a lot more plays at first go the other way, a little bit more offense? The limited throws to first now, after two, it's a balk. That stuff, I'm really anxious to see how that stuff plays out. I think we all know the pitch timer is going to make the game quicker. I was looking at some data a couple of weeks ago as far as the Astros and their timing to the plate. I think pretty much all of them were in that range, so I don't think it's going to be a big issue for them. And, of course, the shift. How is that going to affect especially Tucker and Alvarez, guys who, especially Alvarez, it looks like hits into the shift a lot. But I'm all for them. I mean, I was never really a fan of the shift, just being, an older guy, get off my lawn. What's the center fielder doing in right field? Come on, this is crazy. There was a game in Arlington a few years ago that Brad Peacock was pitching, and the Astros had a shift on. I think they had a fourth outfielder. They would,
no, you're right.
Yeah. And so from my angle in the press box, I took a picture, and it looks like Brad Peacock, just with the way I cropped it, you can see the whole infield other than just past second on the right side. You can see most of the outfield because they were playing deep. It looks like he's on the field by himself. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, this is what baseball has become. And all the other guys were over here. And so, I understand why people do that, and it worked, and the Astros were at the forefront of that. They win the World Series on the final play with a grounder into the shift. Works perfectly. But I'm a traditionalist. I like the game that I grew up watching, where you got two guys on each side of the base and three outfielders. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm personally hoping, at least in spring training, for some just chaos because of the rule changes. I feel like there's going to be, especially with the pitch clock and with some of the, like you said, the balk call on throwing. I feel like there's going to be some of that's just going to happen, especially when you get some rookies in there and some of the especially some of the catchers who have to keep track of all this stuff. Blum and I have talked about how catching is going to be a big deal now because they're going to have to keep track of the clock. They're going to have to keep track of all mound visits and everything else. I'm kind of hoping there's going to be maybe not in the regular season. But I'm sort of hoping there's going to be a little craziness, and we're going to see guys make mistakes and just be just trying to figure out the rules.
I guess that's what spring training is for, right? To get it all ironed out, and even before the games start, the Astros are going to have, I'm sure Joe Espada is going to be putting them through these drills, and they're going to have the timers out there on the field. So a lot of the guys coming up now, although the Astros, don't have a lot of these guys on the team, they played with these rules in the minor league. So the guys coming up, a little bit less an adjustment than maybe the Altuves of the world or McCullers or guys who've been in the big leagues for a while.
That's going to be fascinating. Last question for you, then we'll let you go. I don't know if you've seen it yet or if you have any thoughts about the new book that's coming out about the sign stealing that's coming out from Evan Drellich of The Athletic, and sort of a meta book where they talk about sort of how they covered it, which obviously, anybody who I love movies about media, and how things work. I'm fascinated by that stuff. My dad was a photojournalist. I'm really interested in that stuff too. What have you seen anything about it? You have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I've read a couple of the excerpts that Evans put out there on The Athletic. Evan was on the beat for 3 years, and I became friends with him. I think he's a tremendous reporter. I know he's not Astros fans. He's not their favorite with obviously breaking what was a huge story. Right. And he's coming out with a book a few years later. But I'm going to read it just because I feel it's my duty as someone who follows the Astros to know everything that's going on. But just I know he's put a lot of work into it too, and there's a lot of good reporting in there, and I'm a fan of good reporting. This is the third book out now about the sign stealing scandal, so I think that's probably enough after this. I think we're all ready to move on. So I think it'll be a good book. I know probably not many Astros fans will read it, but I know he's worked hard on it and did do a lot of reporting. So I'm anxious to check it out.
I'll probably read it. I mean, it is Astros. Blummer and I were just talking before you came on about how we're all ready for that to be done. I feel like almost baseball's ready for that to be done. It's like, come on, it's 6 years ago when all that stuff happened.
And so many players are on so many other teams now, and but I think until all those guys aren't with the Astros anymore, it's still going to linger. I think them winning another championship, it helps in a way, but then a lot of people, it's never going to be good enough. It's going to be, well, they're the Astros and this and that, and they could win 3 or 4 more. But look at the New England Patriots. I'm not comparing the Astros to the Patriots because the Patriots won 5 championships in that span, but they were caught doing a couple of things, and they just continue to keep winning and just keep piling up championships. And I think ultimately that's the best way to shut people up, is to just keep winning.
Absolutely. Brian, can't thank you enough for joining us today. MLB.com. I say it on the podcast all the time. Your Wednesday newsletter is my jam. I love that thing. Whenever that thing comes out, it'll be coming out this morning, I assume.
That's today, yeah.
Yeah,
should be on the way. Yeah.
one of my favorite things to read all week.
Appreciate that.
And really appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts. I'd love to have you back at some point. And anything that we can dig into your brain and find out all the little tidbits, because obviously you're around the team all the time.
Tidbits are the best. I was going to bring that up, man.
Tidbits?
I give tidbits get me through some of my broadcasts. I give them credit for them too, but man, the tidbits are the best.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
Okay, yeah, I'm thinking about getting a Time for Tidbits T-shirt. I'll have to get on that.
People love it.
Is it going to be the tags with the sunglasses on?
Yeah, be back.
Yeah,
exactly.
Be the sunglasses, yeah. Exactly. You got to get the sunglasses.
Well, I changed my Twitter picture the other day because I tweeted something out during the Dana Brown stuff, and the tweet went on MLB Network, and it had my cartoon picture with the sunglasses. I'm like, okay, that's kind of dumb. So I put my real picture back on there for now. But we can bring it back.
People in baseball like to have some fun.
It's true.
It's not going to hurt anybody. Brian, thanks so much. Always appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay. Fantastic stuff, with him. Hope to get him back on at some point. He's, the tidbits are the best.
Oh, man.
The tidbits are so strong. I'm telling you guys, if you don't get the newsletter, go sign up. Other than this podcast, there are a few things you should actually... Exactly.
Yeah.
Also,
we're 1A, he's 1B. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. You could buy if you want, buy a copy of the Evan Drellich book and burn it on your fireplace if you feel so inclined. I'll probably read it. I mean, I don't want to read the stupid thing, but I'll probably read it just to see what they say. Watch the next thing's a movie.
Oh, dear God.
Can you imagine? Let's not. So, Blummer, any final thoughts?
No, I'm just grateful to be in the city of Houston and have, I've hung around Brian McTaggart as a player and now as a broadcaster, and we've become friends. So I absolutely adore the guy. I think he's one of the purest guys in baseball. And you heard it in the interview. He doesn't BS. He doesn't, he loves the Astros. He's a Houstonian, but he'll still give you that nice objective opinion and be honest with you. So I'm grateful for him, and obviously grateful to be here in Houston because I get to meet people like you and him. But no, I'm excited. Every podcast we do until we get to the regular season is just going to be a lot of fun and excitement and pushing towards what's looking to be another great 2023 season for the Astros.
Absolutely. Loads more to come. I can't tell you how much I enjoy talking to guys like him too, because I've said it on here, and you know that I love peeking behind the curtain. I love knowing what's going on behind the scenes. I'm not a credentialed member of the media. Look, I say it in quotes. I got air quotes for that one. So I do get on. I'm on the team list and all that stuff, but I don't go to games and cover all that stuff. I've never been a beat reporter. So for me, just getting to find out that information from guys like McTaggart, who is there every day and really entrenched, every single day in the trenches with them in the clubhouse. Pretty fascinating. Blummer, I did want to ask you, since the guy asked, who do you think is the funniest Astro that you deal with? I asked McTaggart. I'm curious what you think.
Well, Stanek is a really good conversation. He's right about that. He's one of the more cerebral guys, even though, you look at the hair flow and you think he's going to be the lead singer of, a Leonard Skinner cover band. But he's got some personality about him. I think Omar Lopez, a first base coach, he's pretty entertaining, to be honest with you, and stirs the pot a little bit. Chaz, he was right about Chaz. Chaz is one of the I mean, sometimes lacking self-awareness makes you funny, and I think that's where Chaz might be, in some of the things he says, but don't sleep on the dryness of Kyle Tucker. That dude is funny. Oh, yeah.
Really?
Kyle Tucker's my funny guy. Yeah, you watch out for him. He's got some good stuff.
That is fascinating. What an interesting. I'll have to look out for that. I know there was a mic'd up segment last year. I think Stanek was mic'd up, and then Chaz came over to talk to him, and Stanek had to warn him that he was on a hot mic. Like, don't say anything crazy. So I think even the team understands that Chazzy Fizz is that guy for sure. Well, we will be back on next week with fresh podcast brought to you by BetOnline. Another huge thanks to all our listeners and viewers all across the world. You guys are awesome. Keep liking and subscribing, commenting. Give us them 5 stars, baby.
Rate and review, damn it.
Yeah, exactly. You heard Blummer. You think you can get away with not writing a review now? I don't think so, son.
Let's go.
So just 58 days now until opening day against the Chicago White Sox, I believe. I don't know if you saw the schedule, Blummer. Kind of interesting, the release of that schedule yesterday. There's Phillies will be here in April. Astros are going to, of course you've seen the release. You're going to be covering the damn games. What am I talking about?
No, I've been staring at it. Oh, no, I've got it right here on my bulletin board that I look at. But there are some fantastic weekend matchups. You said the Sox early. Rangers come in the middle of April. Then you have the Phillies to finish off April. The Yankees on a weekend. Mariners are. They go to the Dodgers on a weekend. I mean, it's going to be. This is a good schedule.
There's going to be some good times at Minute Maid on the weekend. Hey, I will say this. The fewer games in the NL West means fewer, for you at least, fewer at baseball after hours.
Oh, dear God. Yeah, you're knocking off Oakland. You're knocking off one less trip to Seattle. I love Seattle, but going there 3 times is excessive. And that third plane flight up there seems like it takes about 9 hours. I feel like we're going to Hawaii. But not having to do that will be awfully nice. And don't forget, the first week of... It looks like the first weekend in September, you're going to have the Yankees. The second weekend in September, you're going to have the Padres. I mean, this season, with the lack of West Coast travel and staying a little more central and East Coast centric, is going to be more time for me and the fans.
And hey, let's be honest. The NL was a better league than the AL last year. So so maybe it'll balance out a little if the Mariners have gotten better, and but we still have to play the NL. But yeah, you get a trip to Pittsburgh in winter, Plum. So
oh boy,
good luck with that one.
I thought, we're getting prepared here in Houston for that trip right now.
Are you
with the weather?
Oh, you're not kidding. And I'm getting ready to go to the damn mountains where, like, my buddy who I'm going with is like, listen, we should pack plenty of food because there's a decent chance we'll get snowed in. I'm like, snowed in? No, I don't want to be snowed. Look, it sounds all fun and cozy, but dude, brother needs to get to the city on occasion. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I'm with you on that.
I don't want to be 100%. Stuck in a damn cabin. I don't care who you are, I don't want to be stuck in a damn cabin.
Nope.
All right, thanks everybody for joining us. We will see you guys next week. Have a great rest of the week and weekend, and we will talk to you soon. Go Astros.